Clip. All right, I'm just going to have to go to kind of window here too. I'll go slower then, since I don't have the full speed of the zoom it with me. So best practice analyzer, wherever this may have taken off to.
Mm-hmm.
Let me close out. Yeah, that's fine. I'm going to delete that rule here real quick. Yep, it's just asking me to start. So I'm going to grab this rule here again, just in the web browser. Do an add, include rule file from URL. Just taking a little bit slower here now, so press OK. Paste the JSON. OK here once again, and then the raw GitHub content. So if I press OK here, I now have the rules loaded on my machine. If I go to Tools, my Best Practice Analyzer F10, I can see this pop-out window. And then a little bit smaller here, but 190 object violations and 13 best practices now violated. Violated doesn't mean that the model's unusable. I mean, as long as the model works, I'll never kind of knock something. This is just ways to improve it. So maybe in some of these, do not use floating point data types, 100% agree. If you've got 15 decimal place precision, you're getting that unique, not taking care of the cardinality, scale that back a little bit. This one seems a little bit more interesting though. So hide foreign key columns. If I was to hover above this, it says columns used on the many side relationship should be hidden. I would agree. That's a good practice to kind of put into effect here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate to this generate fixed script button here at the very top.
Wow.
We're going to fix script copy to clipboard. And if I go to advanced scripting, I'm going to paste this. I'm going to just stretch this out a little bit. We'll zoom in here just with the keyboard. So you need to go to 100% zoom, or I'll just do the control scroll. So reading through the script now, it says model tables orders dot columns customer ID, and then is hidden equal true. All right, so salesperson ID data column is hidden equals true. Interesting. So it seems like it's using this is hidden property, so that one of our Tom object properties, right? And it's setting that value to now true to go and hide those. So let's see what this looks like here. So I'm going to snap over my Power BI desktop to our left. Awesome. We'll put our tab editor here on the right. I've got this orders table. I want to go ahead and hide these columns now. So I've got the customer ID. I'm going to go ahead and run this script. We'll snap this out here a little bit. My orders. Run the script. Very cool. So I can see in just a light gray here, customer ID now hidden, salesperson ID now hidden. But it seems like it's still visible here on the model side though, within my desktop. So what I need to do is I actually need to save my changes. So up here at the very top, just the little save icon, or you can press Control S. So I'm going to do Control S. Columns instantly hidden. Very cool. So I was able to unhide 11 different columns just using the script, kind of the point of a click of a button here. But let's try something again though. I'm gonna maybe change something in the desktop. We'll see if Tabular Editor can go ahead and pick up these changes now. So I'm gonna right click, we'll just do unhide all. Unhide, working on it. Now back in black over here. So Tabular Editor was able to write these changes down to my Power BI desktop file, and then it was also able to read those back up into Tabular Editor. All right, so that's pretty cool. I like these experts that I just have their knowledge out here, this 20-year history where I can just go out and look at my model, maybe apply some of these changes. But I know about this hidden property now. So if I go back to Best Practice Analyzer, I don't always need to see the script. This one feels pretty innocent. I know what it is. So what I can do instead is I can just press this Apply Fix. Press Apply Fix. I can see it's now gray. Press Control S. See here with my Power BI desktop, those columns are now instantly hidden. So you have that flexibility. Maybe if you only want to change some of the items within the script, go ahead and copy and paste, read through it. If it's something more kind of advanced and you're just not comfortable pressing the Apply Fix, come out here, read through the code, just kind of understand what the underlying process is doing. but I understand it's not always about, the tabular experience. It's also about some of your organizational experiences. So here now we're going to look at creating our own rule. So I'm going to do a tools. I'm going to do a manage BPA rules. I'm just going to create a new rule here on my local machine. We're going to call this just disable auto time intelligence here for our name. I'm not a fan of the auto date time intelligence. Just it keeps me up at night, losing sleep. I'm going to spare you from reading this full description. Let me go ahead and paste it in here. And then we're going to write this rule. So just for any of my tables, right? Thinking about my Tom. So tables, just any of them where they have a name property that maybe starts with open parenthesis, double quotes, local date table underscore, double quotes, close parenthesis, close parenthesis. I can see those pesky date time tables down here. And then, of course, this isn't limited to just Power BI data sets. If you have any SQL Server analysis services or Azure analysis services, you can look back at earlier compatibility levels. Because if you remember, we're looking at our Tom, Power BI is at the highest level, so it's at that 1520. Very cool. So let's press OK. Let's run our rules now. So just F10, or you can press the best practice analyzer. I can see disable auto time intelligence. It's now letting me know that, yes, I found some auto date time in here. May want to get that cleaned up. Unfortunately, you can't script that out just because it is a GUI property over here. So I'm going to do File, Options and Settings. We'll do our options. And then we'll instantly see here kind of this change. So within our current file data load, disabling auto date time, press OK. Changes were made outside of Tabular Editor. Do you want to update the model? Yes. Local date table is now gone. Refresh my best practice analyzer. Knocked one more off the list. Very cool. So let me pause here. Having expert consultants here at your desktop, just this 20-year history and knowledge. How incredible is that? Let me know if there's anything in the chat there for us too.
Yeah, the only thing that there was some discussion that possibly Control-4 might be a Zoom hotkey separate from, I'm not sure if that's something they borrowed from Zoom it or not. Whoa, we saw a timer show up. Maybe not Control-4. Interesting. Or possibly Control-2, but I think that may be the draw tool. So to do an on-screen zoom, but
yeah,
we'll
have to give up on the zoom.
All right. We can zoom in on our side. So if it's something is really hard to read, we have the capacity. If anybody's on a mobile device, you can pinch out was a tip from Fira, and then if you're on your desktop, you can on the view options, you can just you have zoom levels right there to kind of get it as big as you need it to be. So
cool,
yeah.
Awesome. Then, so we've got a few options there, at least on Zoom. We're getting to some larger text where I can at least kind of scroll up and down.
Yeah.
I want to talk about rapid development, because this is what really I'm excited about here within Tabular Editor, and hopefully you'll see kind of your mind will explode here with this as well. So advanced scripting options, the language is C#. And I'll pause there because you're probably thinking, Alex, I know nothing about C#. Neither do I. I don't write C#, but I'm a really good problem solver. So right now we're going to start breaking down the problem. We'll see, how can we apply the knowledge that we have kind of within the Power BI experience and maybe start applying it to some of these advanced scripts. So within our advanced scripting tab, just go ahead and zoom in here now for us, just so we can kind of see this full. I'm going to start out with this statement here. So this selected period. Awesome. So I've got a little IntelliSense, so I'm not alone. Table. All right. So the currently selected table. And then period. And then I want to add a measure. So I've got 3 arguments: a name, expression, and display folder. So let's click back here. So let's do that. So let's add a measure. So first one is my name. This is going to be my total count of double quotes. And then my concatenator over in C# is going to be a plus symbol. And I want to use one of my properties here. So my selected table, period name. I'm going to do a comma. So my first argument is my name. I've got that done. Next argument here is the expression. So I'm going to do count rows. So just using the DAX function here now. Good practice using a single quote, double quote, just in the event I have a table with maybe like a space in the name. Concatenator is my plus, selected, period, table, period, name. All right, so I'm using that name property again. Concatenator plus, double quotes, single quote, close parenthesis, double quotes, comma. And then that third argument here, just that optional argument, if I want to store it into a folder, yes, that's fine. So let's store it in our measurements folder. Once again, not dependent. You can call that pineapple if you'd like. And I'm going to do a semicolon here at the very end, just as a good practice here on the C#. So if I select the table, so I'm going to do orders. I'm going to add a named kind of measure here called total count of, I think, orders. So let's run this. Awesome. So it instantly created this measurements folder for me. It added this total count of orders. And I can see down here in my properties pane, so the display folder is measurements. The name is total count of orders. Then also my expression is count rows of the orders table. All right, so breaking our problem down here again, right? The argument first being a name, second being the DAX expression, and then third being the display folder. Orders table, press Control S. Instantly added that measurements folder here for me with my new measure total count of orders. Awesome, awesome. Control Z, let's undo. Let's kind of get rid of this here now. Because I noticed this pattern here, this selected table.name. I kind of wrote it twice. So I'm thinking about my DAX knowledge now and just bring over kind of those experiences. So a variable, so maybe I can store that here in a variable. So var, table name. Obviously, once again, just the variable name is not kind of reserved. You can call it whatever you'd like. I'm going to use this selected period table, my IntelliSense. All right, get the muscle memory going here. So, and then the name property. I'm going to use this variable now. Get rid of these. Get rid of that. Select my orders table here again. I'm going to press run. Cool. So total count of orders, count rows, orders. Ended up in my measurements folder, yes. Let's try on customers, employees, if I was to do it kind of with these two. I'm going to hold shift if they're adjacent or control if they're not adjacent. I'm going to do the run script. All right, so I've got an error message. The selection contains more than one object of type table. All right, so I did select two tables, yes. Probably need to go back and think about this now. So let's delete this code. I just want to build that muscle memory here as we go. I'm going to click on the samples. We'll do tutorials. Then we'll say loop through all selected tables. All right, so I'm learning this whole C# thing. So for each, so we've got a for each loop now. For each table that I select, go ahead and store that in a variable called table. All right. So let's scroll down here to number 14. Let's add that variable back. So I'm gonna go down here, just get rid of that green commenting. It's not needed for our example. It's just commented out code. I'm gonna call this var again, table name, just not reserved. You can call it whatever you want. I'm gonna use my table and then my name property, right? Close semicolon, that good practice here in C#. I want to use the table dot add a measure. My three arguments here now. So my name, so I'm going to say the total count of, concatenator is my plus symbol, and then table name, comma. So my first argument was my name. Next argument was that DAX expression here. So my count rows, open parentheses, single quote, double quotes, just like good practice. Concatenate the plus symbol, my table name variable again, plus symbol, double quotes, single quote, close parentheses, double quotes, woof, comma, and then my measurements folder. Semicolon here, close that one out, and just one more here at the very end. Just good practice, close out every statement. So I've got my customers table. I expand this out now here. You can just press left or right on your keyboard to expand or collapse. So I'm select customers and employees. I've selected two tables. I'm gonna run my script. Awesome. So I see measurements, total count of customers now created. I see measurements, total count of employees created. All right, so my brain is starting to think here, so I can loop over multiple items. It's probably not the most helpful though. Like I'm not gonna be doing like a lot of table level looping. It's probably gonna be a lot more column based though. So I'm gonna do Control Z just to undo, or Control Y to reapply. You know, if you're just used to the hotkeys here, so Control Z. I'm gonna delete my code, just continuing to build up that muscle memory. Now I'm gonna go to Samples, Tutorials. I'm gonna select Loop through all selected columns. So we're now on the column section here. Get rid of my green code here. Reading the code again, I'm starting to break the problem down. So for each column that I select, store it in a variable called column. All right, so let's do a column. And we'll do the table that it's stored in. Then we're gonna add a measure, open parenthesis. What was the first argument? Can anyone help me out? What was the first argument here on the add measure? And I can't see the chat, so I'll have to rely on someone to come off mute and tell me. What was the first argument here for add measure? All right, it's my name. So it's the sum of, double quotes, my concatenator, my plus symbol, column, variable, period, the name property of that column, comma, the DAX expression here, so sum. And I'm not gonna use a single quote this time. I'm just gonna use the double quotes. And I'm gonna do a concatenator. And I'm gonna say the column. And I'm gonna use this property here called the DAX object full name. DAX object full name. All right, so what is that? So the DAX object full name property provides the fully qualified name. So it includes both the table name and the column name. So in that way, if you had two columns that were called the same thing within your model, you could just have the table name prefixed. So new concatenator here, double quote, close parenthesis, quotes, comma, store this in our measurements folder, close parenthesis, semicolon, one more semicolon. And let's go down to our sales order lines table. I'm going to select the quantity, unit price, and then my pick quantity. So I'm going to select these three columns. I'm going to go ahead and run this script. Measurements. All right, so it was able to deploy three different measures here. So sum of quantity, sum of unit price, and sum of pick quantity. All right, I like that. So what if I added another measure over here? So building those reps in now, column, period, table, period, add measure, open parenthesis. I'm gonna say the average of, double quotes, concatenator, our plus symbol, column, period, name, comma, DAX expression, so the average, our DAX measure, double quotes, plus, column, period, DAX objects. I feel like I've written this. Maybe I should have like stored this into a variable instead. I love what you're thinking. You're already starting to look at the code. You're starting to break it down. You're starting to maybe think about ways to improve upon this. I love that. It's DAX object full name plus, double quotes, close parenthesis, and then just our measurements folder. So we're going to store all these just in the measurements folder. Close parenthesis, semicolon. Let's undo these three. Control Z. Now we're going to select quantity, unit price, and pick quantity. Let's go and run script or press F5, just the green button up here. Sum of quantity, average of quantity, sum of unit price, average of unit price. Interesting. So I was able to deploy 6 different scripts just here within the, 6 different measures here just within the simple run of the script. So if I was to save these changes back now to my model, you can see it updating here. Just waiting for it to update. There we go. Awesome. So 6 different measures just here written. Oh, it's probably because I was on the wrong table. There we go. 6 different measures deployed into my model with a simple script run. Interesting. So why do I think that this scripting is so important? Go to the bottom of the page here. Script snippets. Everything we were learning today in terms of writing the code, all out here, all documented. And the great part is that they're all just templates. So thinking about like our time intelligence here now, this pattern that exists out here, if I was to go ahead and copy this, let's go ahead and paste this here into my script window. I noticed at the very top, the variable, it's not the name of the date table that I have. I just call mine calendar. So I'm gonna update, instead of calling it date, I'm gonna call it calendar. I'm gonna go ahead and select these 6 measures I just ran, press F5. Look at that. Wow. So I was instantly able to deploy just 36 different measures here in the click of a button. Interesting. And then of course, our community, the best part of the journey of Power BI. You can go out here and start contributing scripts so that others can just copy and paste. For me, it will be an absolute privilege to come out here and one day copy and paste your code. If you have a long weekend, you've got some time off, daxpatterns.com. A good place to come out and exercise, kind of building this muscle. So looking at the patterns that they've written, maybe translating these into scripts for Tabular Editor, contributing those now back out to these community galleries. So whether it be basic scripts, more intermediate scripts, or advanced scripts, copying and pasting, pointing to your columns, changing those variables, instantly deploying hundreds of measures in the click of a button. So let me go and pause there. Advanced scripting, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of comments in the chat about just kind of people being generally blown away. Jamin did have one question.
Yeah.
About using this with SSAS and just analysis services models.
100%. File open, and then you can just connect to those databases because it's the same underlying analysis services database engine. So if you want to use Tabular Editor for SSAS, AAS, or Power BI kind of premium data sets, so that XML endpoint, you can connect it to all of those. So I know kind of a question that's come up in other sessions is, Visual Studio kind of doing model development over there versus Tabular Editor. I'm of the opinion Visual Studio is an extremely heavy application where Tabular Editor is extremely light. I don't experience any of the white screens of death over here. Everything is fluid. And now I have these scripting abilities as well. I can do the full model development. So in terms of relationships, I can see all these properties. I can add new relationships. I can do it all. So there's nothing that Tabular Editor can't do that kind of VS does.
Here, awesome. See from the chat. Yeah, basically people saying pretty incredible. I need to brush up on it now.
One thing I am kind of curious about is are there risks in using this? So I know that when I think I first read about this being announced, they put a lot of dire warnings with it. Like we're like not, they might say it's not supported, quote unquote, but have you ever experienced any issues? Does Power BI use the standard tabular model? I mean, that may be the question.
Yeah. So, I mean, the largest issues were on enhanced metadata format. We're kind of on the Power Query side, just because I think has been kind of alluded to earlier. It's just the still disconnected experience. So there are certain things, like if you were to create like new partition, kind of using the Power Query, it may not work. Some of the data load, just not as flexible. But if you're connecting up to obviously the XML endpoints or analysis services, you're fine. Create a backup. That's the best I could recommend. But ideally, at least in terms of like DAX scripting, you're more than fine. It's probably going to be more of like the table level Power Query integrations that you might find like a sticking point. But hopefully, at least on the DAX side, you're seeing the potential in the power here. Save your scripts into custom actions. So that way, if you're applying the same patterns over and over to your different models, you can just do it kind of in the simple click of a button. Cool.
Yeah, I'm sure I speak for a lot of us. I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up and super and pretty incredible in the chat. But I mean, I know a lot of my time when I'm working in Power BI files historically has been hitting, new measure and waiting for my control to come back after all the visuals refresh for some reason. And then usually what actually happens is I accidentally click out of the box, which makes my new measure go away. Then I right click I hit the dots again, I say new measure again. Then I finally get the measure name selected so I can type it in, and all that whole cycle where it takes me about 60 seconds to type a sum, a very simple sum measure.
Yep.
This is a lot better, a whole lot better. I guess you can do the same with columns, you mostly added measures here, but you could modify your columns, right?
Yep. So any of these properties you could script out. So if you're doing like descriptions, you could loop through every description and add kind of any of these underlying properties, whether it be format strings, any of the underlying properties though.
Can you add format strings there that aren't actually available in Power BI where you can custom, you can set the custom string?
No.
9 or whatever. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it still has to be kind of whatever functionality is compatible with Power BI. So I think object level security, I mean, you could do it over in Tabular Editor, but it's not going to be inherited. So there are just certain things where just Power BI is not able kind of at that full functional, either SSAS or AAS.
That was one of the interesting features that they said, hey, now with personalized visuals, we support perspectives. In this case, they were talking about tabular model perspectives that allow you to kind of customize the data viewed by certain people. It's not a security feature, but it lets you filter down the data model for people.
Exactly.
Even though you can't see anything about it necessarily in Power BI, but if you have created those here in Tabular Editor, it'll respect them in the Power BI personalized visuals view.
You got it. You got it. Yep. And the only way to unlock those right now is at least within Tabular Editor or some other application. But that's why I see the importance of this tool and why I'm definitely out here kind of championing kind of everyone getting their hands on it, especially thinking about the model processing time. Anytime you add a DAX measure over here, you can add as many as you like. It's only going to be whenever you hit that final save that it does that kind of underlying metadata update.
So there was one question from Mohammed here that says it's an external tool. Is it safe to use for confidential data? I see. Yeah, good question.
Yeah, I mean it's just reading the metadata here that's stored within Power BI Desktop. So as long as you feel comfortable opening Power BI Desktop, that's it. And we looked at earlier, kind of within the beginning here, the only content that Tabular Editor is reading from is the underlying metadata contents. So if we look at tables, maybe looking at customers, I mean, this is going to be a JSON that shows customer data. Like that's it. So there is no actual row level information. Just what is the underlying metadata that makes up this body? So like columns, 100% fine. Awesome. So let me go ahead and press Control Z though. We're going to move on to calculation groups. I'm just noticing a lot of kind of sprawl here with them in my model. Just using the same pattern though, this YTD, PY, I see it over and over again. So I'm going to do Control Z. Kind of close this out here. And I'm going to go up to my just table level And I'm going to right click. I'm going to do a create new in the calculation group, or Alt 7 if you're just a hotkey fan. I'm going to call this time intelligence. It's not dependent. Once again, I'm just not pointing out any reserved keywords. If you want to call it pineapple, feel free. So time intelligence, name, we're going to update here. Just on my right-hand side, I'm going to call this my time calculation. So I'm using a little bit of the property page now. And I want to add 3 new calculation items. So I'm just going to right click here, new calculation item. Here's my first, here's my second, then here's my third. Cool. I'm going to write out a little bit of DAX now. So I'm going to switch over from advanced scripting, so the C# just over to my DAX window. Unfortunately, there is no IntelliSense at this moment. Daniel does have it, the creator of Tabular Editor does have it on his major release plans. But right now, he's just working through some of the bug fixes and minor releases. So let's write our calculate. Awesome. So I do have a little bit of syntax highlighting. Calculate. I'm going to use this selected measure, open parenthesis, close parenthesis. So I'm not actually passing through any arguments. All right. I'm not really familiar with this, but we'll see what it looks like. And I'm going to use dates MTD. I'm going to get my month to dates. I'm going to use a single quote, calendar, square bracket, just point it to my date column, close parenthesis, close parenthesis. Very cool. So the best code is the kind you can copy and paste. So copy, paste this down here, switch it from MTD over to QTD. And then one more time down here for new calculation, I'm going to switch MTD to YTD. Oh, there we go, YTD. So I've got 3 different measures that's telling me not saved them, just kind of here with the blue bubble. Let's update the names of those. So new calculation is now my MTD. New calculation item 1 here is going to be my QTD. And then number 2 here was my YTD. So just getting all 3 of these updated here. So just on property number 7. And then I want to set the format strings here. So I'm just going to use kind of the format string expression. I'm going to select all 3. So month to date down to YTD. So holding shift. I can see here the format string expression. I'm just going to paste this in here now. Cool. So I was able to just write my own calculation items, clicking the right click, adding these measures, just copying and paste them between the 3 here, and then also bulk updating my format string expression. So Tabular Editor doesn't have to be all script all the time. If you want to use the graphical user interface, you're more than fine to do so. If you wanted to add new measures, you can right click here, just create new measure, column, hierarchy, whatever you need to build. So just know that balance. You know, when should I script? When should I just do kind of the hands on the keyboard here with the graphical user interface? Awesome. So we have our calculation items. I'm going to go ahead and save this now just into my data model. It's giving me this new yellow bar. 1 or more calculation groups need to be manually refreshed. Yes. So let's just refresh those properties. Expand this out now just so you can see that in full screen. We're going to go to our calendar table. Just go ahead and drop in kind of year here in a matrix. So I've got the year. I'm going to also add the month just underneath it here in my rows. And then I'm going to add, let's do sales order lines. Let's drop in total unit price. Very cool, very cool. And then I'm going to use this time intelligence, this time calculation within my columns. Awesome. So it instantly applied month to date, quarter date, and year to date based on my selected measure, which was total unit price. Awesome. So if I delete total unit price, maybe I can drop an average of quantity. Awesome. So it applied average of quantity, months, quarter, and then year to date as well. So that selected measure is not dependent now. So if you have multiple patterns, if you have a lot of sprawl here in kind of your measure names, see what obviously would be great for a calculation group. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's like comparisons. It's like variance, like percentage of, or kind of a change up or down. Just a lot of flexibility here with kind of the calculation groups. Cool. So with that, where do you go from here? continuing your journey, the creator of Tabular Editor, Daniel Oedeker, he has a Tabular Editor playlist put together by PowerBI.tips. If there was a particular, let me go ahead and mute this here in a second. If there was a particular section that caught your eye here today, whether that be the scripts or maybe best practices, or if you're looking at like the full-blown DevOps experience, come out here, just watch through one of the videos. A lot of these are just an hour in kind of length. Script snippets, if you want to start learning how to write these scripts, or maybe you're just looking at what exists, what can you start copying and pasting? Like I said, I don't know anything about C#, but I can start breaking these problems down. So our table.add measure, he's got that listed out here. Thinking about adding the format string and automating that process, the descriptions. So just automating everything here kind of within your TOM. So those tabular object model properties. Calculation groups, obviously if you're looking at just diving into those head first, Microsoft Docs has got fantastic documentation, then also SQL BI. They've got a great series. So just go out there, continue to just invest your time in Tabular Editor. I think it's such a fantastic tool. And with that, we are done. Any additional thoughts or questions?
Yeah, I'd just like to pause, and I think everyone can unmute yourself if you'd like to ask a question. Zoe's saying definitely awesome. I'll lead it off with one question, and I'd love to leave a little time for others. But I mean, Dean asked through the chat. He kind of said, "These are awesome features. What will they ever just incorporate them into Power BI directly, or what do you see as kind of that roadmap for merging these families of tools?"
As someone who's active out on the Twitter streams, I mean, I'll give you the honest answer as someone who's been outside of Microsoft and kind of using Power BI for about 5 years. It feels like the self-service is still the focus, whereas a lot of us have gotten really deep in depth. To kind of using Ben as an example, he's a deep expert in the Power Query. I don't feel like we've kept up to date with kind of the pro code developer stories. So right now, the open source, because obviously Microsoft just loves the open collaborative nature now. If there are existing tools that us developers can use today, I would rather you take advantage of those. I don't want to slow you down just with the desktop. Personally, I would love to see these experiences in the Power BI desktop, but knowing that time is kind of a finite resource, you have to leverage them. Just if you're at this skill level now.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And we still want to invite new people in, right? So like the dashboard in the days, how do we still help them out here? If you were to ask me kind of using the roadmap, what is my favorite upcoming feature of Power BI? You'll kind of like blown away. But I see it a lot more these days. So let me pull this up here. If you haven't already bookmarked this, use it for your internal kind of conversations. That's me down here, the little funny emoji. So I'm taking care of this all the time. But so let's do on-canvas watermark. For new Power BI users, it can be difficult to know where to start. It's telling you, hey, to get started, navigate to the field pane. Hey, to drag your fields on the canvas, here's where you can go. There's still a lot of people we've not even invited into the desktop application. They may get lost, they may never come back. So how do we lower that barrier for entry and make it easier for them to get started before it really does become an issue here on the pro dev side? So this is one of those features that I'm extremely excited about, though. It's just inviting more and more people into the conversation.
Well, that's really excellent. And I mean, I want to thank you on behalf of all of us. Thanks for putting yourself out there. I know you kind of said, I think you put on Twitter, hey, I'm open to do this presentation. And before I could even get to you, on the same day, you had like 10 invites from all over the world. So we're definitely lucky to be on your list here. And I'm thankful that you were able to come. And yeah, so thanks for doing it.
Yeah, no, it was great. And obviously for those who aren't connected with me, just find me out on Twitter, Not About to Sell, or over on LinkedIn, just Alex Powers, kind of the perfect name here for the perfect technology. And then with that for today, hopefully, as you saw, if you ever felt lost at any point in time, all of this content is already recorded for you. So just an optional guided video. So if there's a section where you wanted to go back and you wanted to just watch what we did, I've already recorded this for you. So that's just a shameless self-promotion. Come out here, throw me a like or subscribe on the YouTube. But everything we did today is already recorded.